making a shape. This is what my floor plan is going to start out as. Something like that. Now, as soon as I close this polygon, as I click that last side, the solid shape is going to be closed, and it's going to get that 1 foot depth. So I click, and there's my floor. All right. One of the reasons I want to start with floors is because I want to show you how quick and easy it is to edit this footprint. If I go into Direct Edit, which is this button right here with the orange arrow on it, and I click on the floor, it lights up in blue. I get a couple things. I get 2 icons here. These little pop-up icons. If I click on the trash can, it'll delete this floor. The button next to it is the cut line. This will let me actually break any of the sides of this floor. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail down the road here. Right now I want to look at these handles. I have a series of solid and open handles. I can click and drag any of these handles. So I can click and drag these solid handles to move lines, and I can click and drag the open handles to move endpoints. And you can see that preview that shows up as I'm dragging. That's just to make it real easy to use that. Our goal with BuildEdge Pro was really to expedite input and editing as much as possible. So that's what we're really shooting for here. So if I'm looking at my floor plan and I want to make adjustments to how big a room is or the overall size, I can do that. I also have 2 handles here in the middle. This is the bottom and the top of that floor. So I can actually grab one of those and start dragging it, and I can see both up in the upper right corner and down the lower right corner, the depth of my floor is moving as I drag that. I'm going to leave it at 1 foot, but I could come in here and type in a specific dimension right here. If I want to make it a 2 foot deep floor, I can do that. Take it back to 12 by typing it in. Or, like I said, I can grab a handle and drag that. The nice thing about dragging is that I can use snap points. So if I want to use the floor to fill up a space between 2 existing points, I can just drag that. All right, once my floor is good, I'm going to start drawing some walls on top. I'm going to come to walls. And with my walls, I have a couple attributes: my width, wall width, height, and then I have an interior-exterior flag. Right now, you won't actually see a difference in the software with the interior-exterior. This is actually something we're working on right now, which is going to hopefully be a step towards things like takeoffs of approximate materials or sizes of the building. And I can actually track sheathing for exterior walls separate from those for interior walls. So right now, it doesn't matter if I have this marked as interior-exterior, but in the future, hopefully that'll actually affect some output. I'm going to go ahead and start inputting. In this case, I'm just going to trace right around this floor. So I'm just going to click. Oops. And just like drawing lines in SketchUp, each time I click, I input a wall at that line. I can see as I'm drawing each of these lines too, it's automatically welding, we call it, the floor and the walls. I had a question just come in about cutting holes in floors. We can put holes in the floors. I won't do it on this one because I'm pretending this is a slab or something like that. When we put the second floor on top, I'll actually come in and we'll cut a hole in there. And it's something we can do. I'm just won't do it in this one yet. So there's my exterior walls. Say I want to put some interior walls in. Yes, I can come in and I can say I want to make it interior exterior. Like I said, that won't make too big of a difference. But then I can start attaching walls on the inside. Now some special stuff that happens with when I start drawing interior walls. If I pick my start point and that start point is anywhere along an existing wall, something cool is going to happen. So if I click to the top right here and drag a wall out, I'll see that that wall aligns to the bottom. So even though I clicked at the top, my wall is aligned to the bottom. Same thing if I click here right in the middle of the wall and I pull that out, it aligns to the bottom. And again, obviously if I click to the bottom, it aligns to the bottom. This is intentional. If I'm in a view where I'm looking at this from above, like this, especially if I'm zoomed out more or if I have my parallel projection turned on, it can be pretty hard to get snapped to the bottom. So this is intentional. If I can click to the top like this, it's assuming I want my wall to stay attached to the bottom. That's great because most walls are built sitting on the floor below. So if I had something like a knee wall, so if I had a 4-foot wall right here, it knows that I actually want that down below. I do have the ability to bypass that and draw walls on top of walls. So for whatever reason, I want to put a wall on top of here. If I just click, it puts it down to the bottom. You can see that it's kind of overlapping that wall. If I hold down the Command key on Mac or Alt key on Windows, I can actually snap anywhere. Wherever I click is where that bottom of that wall is going to go. So that lets me do things like stacking walls, whatever information I want. Wherever I want to click, it'll draw that wall. It'll kind of bypass the smart stuff. So in this case, I'm just going to draw a little room right here. As I'm drawing these walls, you can see the 3D profile shows me where that wall is going to fall, and I can hit the arrow keys left or right on my keyboard to toggle through the different orientations I can have for that wall. So I can go center, left, or right of the line. In this case, I want it to fall in line with that wall above, so I'll do that. If I want to run this out right to where this point comes across, I can, as I'm moving along, hold down Shift. Again, just like drawing in SketchUp, that's going to lock me into that axis, and I can click to draw that wall. So there's a room there, and I'll just draw a couple more walls in here. You get the idea. Pretty simple, pretty easy. At that point, I'm going to I just had a question about the workflow that I recommend for foundation walls, floors, and then main floor walls. Generally speaking, I do start by drawing a set of walls first. I had a lot of people ask the opposite, so I showed the opposite this time. But if I did have a foundation that I wanted to draw onto, I would probably just draw that first and then draw the slab or framed floor, whatever it is, on top of it, and then the first floor framed walls. That would be my method of doing it if I knew where those were. If I didn't, if I wanted to come back and draw my foundation walls under this now, the easiest way to do it would be to get a line from a corner, say I have a 2-foot foundation wall. I would draw this down 24 inches. That gives me that point right there, and now I could come in with my walls. Sometimes you'll see that where the UI will blank out. If you just click through the properties, you can jump back to what you were seeing. If I want to put in my, say it's a 8-inch wide, 24-inch tall foundation wall, I could change that, and then I could click to this point right here and just start drawing it around. So that would be if I wanted to come add those after the fact. Like I said, you could draw your foundation walls first and then work your way up. That would work as well. All right, so on this set of walls, I'm going to put my second floor. It'll be a 1-foot floor as well. So there's a couple ways I can input that. I put the last one in just by drawing the lines. If I wanted to, I could actually use this pick line. So I can actually just pick which line I want the wall to or the line to fall on. And I can switch back and forth between these. So if I want to come and draw a little cantilever right here, whoops. Undo works as I'm doing this input, fortunately. So if I have an issue like that, I can just hit undo to undraw a line. So I can come and click like that. Generally speaking, floors and walls do align. So clicking around like this is a good way to do it. But there's exceptions. I'm going to say in this case, I actually want the floor to go like that. There we go. As soon as we close it, it closes up like that. That's good. Oop, looks like I misclicked. I missed a line here. I can clean that up easy enough. Snap out there. No, I still missed it. For some reason, it's not cleaning that up the way I would expect it to. Not sure what's going on there. I'll have to look and see if I most likely didn't line something up correctly. That's why it's not healing that the right way. For the second floor walls, do this. This will be fun. I'll actually pull that out and give myself a little bit. I want to play this a little bit more. I'm going to say that I want to break this up a little bit more. I like cantilevers apparently, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to actually want this cantilever to step in similar to the profile I have over here. What I can do is I can come break a line, so I'm just going to click anywhere along this left side or right side, and that's going to actually put a break there. Now it gives me a handle to push back. Turn to a little bit more less orthogonal view of the floor. Grab that, slide it in, and pull this back out. I want to do the same thing over here. Cut. I could cut the face too, like that. And with all these dimensions, I think you guys notice I'm just kind of making up dimensions as I draw along. I can be a lot more precise with this stuff. Cutting is sort of arbitrary. I just pick a point along the line to cut. But once it's cut, I can actually grab this and while dragging, type in specific dimensions into the lower right corner. So right down here, floor side actually tells you how much you're moving. So if I want to move a specific amount, I can do that at any point. I can type that information in there. All right, so once I'm good with that floor, that looks good. Now I want to put my second floor walls on top. Oh, openings. Let's go back to openings. So in floors, I have the draw line, pick line, and then openings button. So if I click on openings, what it's going to let me do is draw a shape. Again, just like drawing a floor, I draw that shape and that just cuts a hole in the floor. Right now, that is just that. It is a hole in that floor. When I go here to edit, I don't have handles around it. I don't have much I can do other than select it and delete it. So there's not a whole lot of editing yet, but that is something that's going to come soon. So we'll give you the ability to edit that beyond just throwing it out. Right now, like I said, that's it. I can click it by the edge, and I can hit delete to remove the opening. And again, that was an arbitrary placement, but what I could have actually done is turn on X-ray or something like that and trace the walls below. We did have a question about round holes. We take SketchUp's policy of not really round, more like segments that are hidden, and take it a step further or a step back. We could actually do a series of segments around to make a round hole, but nothing. We don't have any arc drawing tools or anything like that. If I did want to do something like that, the best way to do it would probably be to use SketchUp to come in and draw the shape of the hole I want, and then use the hole tool to just come in and trace the points around that. That would give me a hole in the floor. That would be the quickest, easiest way to do it. Again, we're trying to keep it simple. We try to keep BuildEdge as light as possible, so if there's a way that we can defer to SketchUp and the great stuff that they do, we always do that. So that's one of the spots where rather than putting a whole new arc tool or recreating that in our plugin, we just let you trace whatever shapes you want. I'm going to put my second floor walls on. So I'm going to come here to walls. And again, I could come in and click and trace the way I did before, or I can use this auto outline command. With auto outline, anytime I mouse over a closed shape, this could be a floor. This could actually also be just a polygon. That auto outline will show me the walls it's going to draw. Show it better. Clicking at that point inputs all those walls for me, and in this case, I get my second floor walls automatically. I'm going to put a roof on top of here. I'm going to start with a basic roof. I'm going to use the pick line. So when I go to draw roofs, I have far more properties under roof line than I do anywhere else in BuildEdge. It's because roofs are probably the more complex things. The floors and walls are basically rectangles, whereas roofs end up being a little bit more complex geometry. So like a floor, I am going to input a polygon. It's a little different than floor in that each side of the polygon is going to have a set of properties. So in here, the first property I have is line type. In this case, I'm going to start with standard. We have a couple others in here. I'll actually probably create some other roofs to show you what these look like, how to use these other roof types. The basic ones, though, are standard. Standard is sloping up perpendicular to the line. Gable is going to be vertical with things like an overhang over top. And then boundary is an edge of a roof. We'll take a look at all three of these in these next two roofs I input. We also have these things called single and double parallel. I'll talk a little bit more about those in another roof I'll draw in. So right now I'm just going to put a standard roof in. I can put in a slope. I can put in slope in two different formats. One is slope over, something in this case like a 6/12 will give me my slope. If I just come in and just type a number, it'll assume degrees. So if I want a 22.5 degree roof, I can type in 22.5. The heel type is rafter or truss. This is going to control the geometry at the wall. So a truss is going to, the geometry is going to come up and then come out into the overhang, whereas a rafter roof is going to sit down directly onto the wall. There's actually very good pictures of what these look like in the documentation. So if you do want more information on how that works, one option is to just draw a roof in and look at it, or you can actually pull up the documentation and see how that works. The heel height is going to be the dimension from the line I draw straight up to the top of the roof. Board width is going to be basically how tall is that overhang that kicks out. And then I have the option of putting a cantilever. Cantilever will actually take from the line the geometry out and then up. I had a couple questions. One was a question about floors. Are the floors groups? Yes, everything that is drawn into BuildEdge is a group. You can edit the geometry, but it will cause some issues with syncing of BuildEdge data and SketchUp data. Not a bad syncing problem. We had some issues with our previous plugin, which was BuildEdge Plan, where mis-syncing would cause problems. The biggest issue you could possibly run into with causing synchronization issues is if you I can come in and select and change this floor using SketchUp tools, but if I go make a change in BuildEdge, it'll throw out my SketchUp changes and just replace them with the BuildEdge data. I can look at that too. We can see how exactly that works. Then another question about walls, if they're drawn from the top of the slab or the bottom. Walls always draw from the bottom up. So anytime I draw a wall, I'm drawing the base of the wall and going up. So that's what I was saying. If I wanted to draw a wall below the bottom of my floor, I would have to draw some sort of point to snap to start. All right, hopping back into roof, I'm just going to use my pick line, and I'm going to kind of buzz around here pretty quickly and just draw an outline. Pick line, you can see, is really pretty easy. I don't have to be real specific with where I pick, anywhere along the outside face of the wall. In fact, shooting for the big target on the outside is easier. If I do something like trying to pick straight down like this, I am more likely to pick the inside of a wall, whereas if I spin around the faces of the walls, I'm more likely to get the proper line. So you can see how that goes. That can go pretty quickly. Again, once I close, it's going to draw my entire roof in. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that, and my roof will show up. So right now, I told everything that I wanted it to be that standard. I'm going to put another little roof down here. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. For one thing, I'm going to draw my lines, not because there's anything different about picking or drawing lines, but my lines aren't going to exactly line up with the walls, so that's why I'm doing it that way. I'm going to put a little shed roof over this section. So I'm going to start with a standard line from here to here. Then I'm going to switch to a boundary line. I'm going to take my boundary line straight back here. Again, a boundary line just says that this is the edge of the roof, but there's no property. So it's not going to affect the roof. It's going to be kind of like cutting it off vertically right there. Now on the side right here, I'm going to tell it I want a gable. I'm going to click right there. And that's going to give me that type of roof. So you can, as you're inputting, change your properties, Or you could dump your whole roof in like this and come back afterwards, select the roof, just like I did with the floor. I can pick an individual line and change properties from here. So I want to change that to a gable. It's real easy to click and make those changes. You can see the roof updates automatically as I make those changes. The other thing I can do with the roof, and this is really cool, this isn't something I would probably do on this house because I have my walls already created and already drawn in. But if I was working on a conceptual roof, I wanted to figure out how a roof is supposed to look, I could do this and it would make a little more sense. But I can actually, once this roof is all drawn in, I could grab these lines and start moving around. And you can see that geometry changing. See my preview as I drag. So right here I'm going to drag across. Look at that, how it updated for that change in the roof geometry. So I could actually do some really crazy, weird geometric changes, and it will let me just pull these lines through, and I can just remake this entire roof, all this geometry, just by clicking and dragging, which is really pretty cool, pretty powerful to be able to do those kind of changes on the fly. Couple questions. One was about unselecting a line once I've drawn it in. So if I did click on the inside of wall, I meant to be on the outside, there's not really an unselect. An undo is the easiest thing to do at that point. So as I'm clicking around, I can just hit Control-Z or come up and click the undo from edit, and we'll back up that one step. The other question I had was about changing heel heights as I go around. Absolutely. You can modify that, again, as you're inputting. So as you're inputting, I could draw one line, change the heel height, draw the next line, change the heel height, draw the next line, or you could draw it in all at once like this, and then on an individual basis, come through and change those values. You can see by changing that to 12, it did a couple things. It gave me a weird corner right here because my overhangs don't match, and it gave me an overlap in the roof right there. So yeah, this is very, very flexible. We tried to make it real easy to do that input. So having done that, we're going to put some doors and windows in, which are my other tools I have. I'm going to start with doors. So in doors, when I come in, the first option I have is my type. So when we did our original software, BuildEdge plan, I referenced that earlier. The original BuildEdge plan, we had some very basic windows. It was actually the same list right here, and we had one generic door type for each one. We changed that a little bit with BuildEdge Pro because we let you choose this door type. So I'm going to choose a standard swing door, and then we created these styles. Each of these styles is an individual dynamic component. So this is good because it gives you the most flexibility. You can actually go in and make changes to any of these if you have SketchUp Pro. That's one of the things I would say was the difference between SketchUp Make and Pro is in Pro you actually have the ability to edit dynamic components, which means you can open any of these files and manipulate them however you want. In the case of all of these doors or windows, there's a couple of customized windows or doors. So I have a standard versus a glass versus a 4 or 6 panel. And I can choose any of those. I'm going to choose a glass one just because it looks the nicest. And I'm going to put it in on this first floor wall. Once I have a door selected and I mouse over, I'm going to get a little preview. This is nice. In our old software, you did have to choose what wall you want to place into. Now I can just mouse right over any of these walls, and the door will show up. Once it's there, I can hit the left or right arrow key. That will let me toggle through the potential placement locations. So by placement locations, what I mean is where the dimension is pulling from and where on the opening it's dimensioning to. So I can do left or right of wall to left or right of door, or I can do left or right of wall to left or to center of door. That was a lot harder to say than it should have been, I feel. So as I'm doing this input, The first thing is it's real important is if I want to force a dimension, so if I want this door to be exactly 2 feet over from the edge, I can toggle to left of wall to left of opening, and I could type in a specific dimension, in this case 2 foot. I can see in the lower right corner it says dimension, 2 foot, and I could hit enter. That'll put it exactly 2 feet. The other thing that it will do is it will anchor this door to that left corner of the wall. So if I stretch that wall, if I drag the wall and I move it, it will hold 2 feet from the end of that wall, wherever the end of the wall that wall goes. The other thing I can do at this point, you can see that little light outline representing the swing of this door. If I hit the up or down arrow key, I can actually toggle through all the potential orientations. So I want this to open this direction toward the wall, and I'm going to hit enter, and there's my door. You can see that's the generic door. It's a 2'6" door by 6'10". I did have a question about lower poly count windows and doors. Again, these are dynamic components, so if you are running Pro, you are perfectly able to open these files up and delete whatever geometry you wanted out of it to keep it simple. There's a bunch of information in here. There is I can make changes to the doorknobs, the size of the trim, the casing. Everything in here is has attributes on it, so it can be modified. But it is a lot of geometry for sure. So yeah, as far as making them low poly, all you'd have to do is open up in Pro and cut out whatever geometry you didn't want in there. If I want to make changes to a door once it's placed, I can mouse over and click on it. Once I pick it up, the only real interactive editing I can do is deleting, which is hitting this, which will delete it out of the wall altogether. Or I can come up and change properties. So if this was supposed to be a 3-foot door, I could come put 3 foot and hit enter, and it'll get wider. You'll notice that when it got wider this direction, again because it's anchored on the left side. Had it been anchored in the center, it would have actually equally, 3 inches would have been added to either side. I can also come in here if I needed to and make changes to the door type. So I can say, well, actually, it was supposed to be a slider, so I'm going to change that to a bypass. And I guess that's theory. That did not change to a bypass for me. Well, unless it's being stubborn, I don't know what that's about. I should be able to make any changes I want at this point. And make those changes. Not sure why it's not letting me. I'll try to put in a double or a bypass door and see if I can put that in manually. I might have messed up my components. The other thing I can do at this point is I can click and drag on a door, and it will let me change the location. So I'm really never stuck with what I've input. I can always come back and make changes later on. I did have a question just come up about regeneration, how fast it comes up. If I make big changes, it does have to go through and basically re-weld all of this stuff so it looks like one model. That usually is the reason for any lag in update if I'm doing editing. That is something that we have talked about internally as far as possibly making that optional. So that could be something we offer in the future. Usually that lag means that there's a lot of geometry in your model and it's taking time to update it. The question was why is there no lag when I'm doing my editing versus somebody was seeing lag, and that's what it is. Just my computer's run a little bit quicker or something along those lines. I don't have any secret version or anything like that. The other thing, I'm going to switch to a window, and I'm going to put in a, sure, I'll do a vertical slider, and I'll come over here. Windows, same thing goes for left and right. Change my input point. Up or down changes whether that trim of the windows facing the inside or outside. One of the things that happens a lot with windows, especially if I have multiple stories like this, is wanting to align upper and lower levels. To do this, if I hold down Shift, watch what happens to the outline of this window. Right now it's pretty skinny lines. If I hold down Shift, it becomes bold, and it also locks me into the window. So I can take my mouse down and I can move over the center point of this door and use that as a snap point. By doing that, I've assured that this door window line up right over each other. So anytime I want to reference, or even reference this point itself, so I want to put this center in this wall, as soon as I move my mouse down to grab the snap point down here, and see I lose that, so I hold down Shift and then come down and snap to the middle of that floor section below. All right, a couple questions came in, and fortunately they're right in line with where I was going to go with this, so that's great. If I look at this window right here, if I want to make it, give it a bigger trim, what I can do is I can click on the window. Like I said, this is a dynamic component. This is something I actually do through SketchUp. So I'm going to come into just regular, plain old ordinary select, click on it, and I'm going to right click, go to dynamic components, and choose component options. That brings up all my options for this window. So like I said, these are componentized options, so I can actually come in here and make whatever changes I want to any of this. So if I don't want it to be a white window, I want it to be red trim, I could type in red, and it'll make it red. That's horrible, I can't stand looking at it, so I'm putting it back to white. At this point, anything in here can be changed. So if I want to do something, like I said, my trim width is 3 inches, but it's supposed to be 6 inches, I can make that change, apply that, and now I have 6-inch trim. Another thing is right now they're turned off because they're set to 0, but if I wanted to put 2 vertical mullions and a single horizontal mullion in each window, I could turn that on and I could get that information in there. Even we had to make up some terminology here, so forgive me if you're a door or window person and you don't like the way I use the term mullion or sash. But I found that just like most of construction, there's a distinct lack of standardization, or I should say everybody has their own standards, so I did have to make up some names and use them in a certain way. They are all documented and on our website. If you go to the tutorials page on our website, there's actually a document about dynamic components which tells specifically what each of these pieces are and how they're used and what can be edited, that sort of thing. But this information can be modified, and just about anything in this window can be changed. Again, at this point, the editing I'm doing is one-off because I'm just pulling up this one window and making changes. If I knew across the board I wanted everything to be changed, then that would be where I would take this and I would actually open the dynamic component, make the change and save it, and then place it into my model multiple times. Something else I wanted to look at real quick is a little bit more editing. So we looked at editing floors, doors, windows, roofs. We didn't talk too much about walls, so I just want to do a little bit of editing of the whole thing. I wanted to get some more in here before we editing, but I want to just say, for example, that I wanted to bump this whole section over. To do it, I could go, close my component options. I'm going to go to BuildEdge Direct Edit, or BuildEdge Select, and I'm going to click on the floor. I'm going to start at the bottom and work up. I don't have to. This is just going to be an easier way for you guys to see what I'm doing. I'm going to drag that line across, and there's that delay, so it is taking just a second to update that. Then I'll grab this wall and I'll pull it. When you click on a wall, you can see you get a series of handles. So I can drag the length, which I'll do in a second. I can drag the bottom or top of the wall up or down, and I can drag the width from either side. I can also hit the trash can to delete it. If I drag it if I just click and drag on it, any face, I can actually drag that, and in this case I'll use the point to snap to pull that wall out flush with the floor. And come up to the next floor. This happens a lot too. Whenever you click, the icons for delete and cut show up just above your cursor. So a lot of times, if I want to get to a handle right here, I will click right near where I know the handle is going to come up, which puts that icon right over the handle. Rather than chance the fact of deleting my entire floor by clicking here, I'm just going to click over here again. That moves my icons but keeps my floor highlighted, and I can grab this and pull it out to the outside. Once that's over, I can grab this wall, pull it over, and then finally I can grab the roof and grab that line and pull it out and snap it out as well. To stretch these walls, I can click right here. Oop, happened again. Click right here, grab this dot right here and pull it out to the outside corner. And I can do the same thing right here. Wow, it's like I'm trying to do it. And pull that to the outside corner right there. So again, real quick and easy is really what we were shooting for. We wanted to make this as simple as possible. Now back up, I got a couple of questions here. One of the things you'll notice is that with my door, I did get a 2D representation there too. We do draw the swing on the doors just to kind of show where it is. I'm going to throw a section in here real quick. Oop, that's not the right. I just switched from 2014 to 2015 recently, so I haven't updated all my toolbars. I don't always know where stuff is, so forgive me for looking like I have no idea what's going on. All right, so I'm going to come here, and then I'm going to go to the top view. So if I wanted to use something like this, I'll even take this to my parallel projection. So if I was trying to work and get a like an architectural section view of my layout, you can see I have this 2D section on the floor. We create that. That's actually a part of the component. So if I pick the door right here, I can see that that 2D is actually a piece of it. That actually shows up if I pull up my layers window. If I look at layers, as I input, BuildEdge populates layers with the information it puts in. In this case, 2D symbols is actually its own layer, so if somebody's asking if I don't want to see that, the easiest thing to do is just turn off 2D symbols, and that'll go away. The other option, of course, would be to open the dynamic component and delete that out of there. But that is pretty easy to get rid of if you just want to hide it as opposed to deleting it. Running through some more, got a little backlog of questions here. Can the change component be made a style? I'm not 100% sure what that question means. So if you ask that change component be made a style, if you want to type in a little bit more detail about what you're asking, I'd be happy to answer if I can. One of the questions that just came up was copying this edited window to other places throughout the model. Unfortunately, that's one of the pieces that's missing that we're working on right now. I can't copy these exact attributes from here to this window. So that's really where Pro becomes a big time saver, because I could actually open the dynamic component, make the changes once, and then place that window throughout. We do want to make it so that I could say copy the attributes of this window to this window, but it's not there yet. Again, like I said, one of the big pieces that we're working on, we want that to be one of the things we can do. I have a question. It says, many of my hip roofs have specific slopes for hip slope and another for main roof slope. Any way to input those? Absolutely. Again, as you input the properties, you can basically input any values for any of these slopes you want. Like I said, when I put this one in, I put it in 6 all across the board, but that's just because that's the way that I did it, just to make it quick and easy. I'm going to go ahead and close this model and start a new one. So what I can do just to give an example, I'm just going to draw a quick rectangle and show that. That's a little short for my walls. I'll put that in. All right, so just get some walls. When I come and draw my roof, I'll say that I want something like, sure, I'll put a 612 on this side and this side, and on the face, I'll do like 1012 here and here, which will give me that non-symmetric roof pitch. And again, my overhangs don't line up then because I would have to actually take this side and make the overhang longer to properly line up there. Something else I want to show, this is a nice clean slate to show it, is these different roof types. I'm going to take this roof and I'm just going to cut it into some pieces. Oops, I missed. There we go. So that gives me 3 inline roof lines. This is something you can do just for standard input. If I have a section where maybe the overhang's longer on the center or something like that, I can always break these into multiple pieces. One of the things that BuildEdge does is if you have a roof or a floor where I have these breaks in the lines, if I'm editing it, I leave editing and then I come back later, it'll actually attempt to weld any inline lines that have the same properties. So right now, if I deselected this and then came back to direct edit, it would actually put this all back into one line because they all have the same properties. But what I want to do is I'm going to take this middle line and I'm going to change its property to a double parallel. A double parallel says rather than run the slope perpendicular to the line I drew, run 2 slopes parallel to that slope and have them intersect. So with this, I can create something like, in this case, I'd call it an eyebrow or arch, or some people call it a dormer. You know, like I said with construction, there's 100 things that people call this, but it's this thing. This can be useful too for things like crickets. If I have a chimney running up on the back wall, I need to do a little cricket behind it. I can actually make the line butting up against the chimney into a double parallel with no overhang to create a cricket. The other option is a single parallel. Single parallel looks like this. Probably not something I would input in the middle of a roof like this. But again, this is more something that I would use if I wanted to do I have a garage up against a higher level wall where I need to worry about water running off the roof or something like that. I would use that. Not so much in the middle of a roof like that. It's definitely causing a mess of my geometry that way. Oops, that wasn't necessarily what I'm going to do. I have another set of questions here, quite a few. One was for a pocket door option, which we've had a lot of requests for. I had no idea pocket doors would be as popular as they are, so they will go on the list. I'm not sure when we'll get them, but I will definitely make sure we put pocket doors into consideration. Can I turn a BuildEdge window into a component? Yes, you can turn it into a component, but placing windows with BuildEdge will always pull a copy of the original dynamic component. So if I was to just right-click and save it as a component, I guess there's some ways I could get around using SketchUp by copying geometry. I think that's where you're going. But yeah, you could, any of this information can be turned into a component. As I'm answering these questions, I'm going to do a little bit more input on here. And look at a couple other things as far as how BuildEdge breaks down a building. I have another question just came up. Yes, the question is changing a component like a window with a thicker style rails, make it a permanent component to be reused later. That's exactly what will happen if you use SketchUp Pro to modify it and then place it. So BuildEdge always pulls from the same set of dynamic components. So if I find the file that's associated with swing door style 6, I can open that dynamic component, make changes to it, save it, and then that is the exact file that BuildEdge will place. So if, again, we had to start somewhere, so we created a bunch of doors and windows to represent doors and windows, but you can make whatever changes you want to the files and save them. So yeah, you can, changing those dynamic components once will let you replace them over and over in the into the model later. What I wanted to look at real quick, somebody asked earlier about the groups that BuildEdge creates. I'm just going to hop back into regular standard select. I can see as I pick these walls or floors, a group lights up around them. If I double click, I can actually go into that group and modify the geometry in it. We do, actually let me back up one bit and talk about this level right here, or this layer right here. I have this always off layer, and if I turn this to visible, I'm going to get a whole bunch of extra lines showing up. So this is the actual geometry that is input in BuildEdge. What we do is any places that these lines are redundant, where I don't need them, we actually throw them onto a separate layer and turn the layer off. So that's how we hide everything. In fact, if I change my style type, I'll actually get rid of these dots on here and have these real smooth lines to be real nice. But that's where that information goes. So it is always here, it's just invisible. And that kind of gives you a better idea of the way floors work or walls in their group. The question I had earlier, I'm going to do another floor over here to show this example, was are floors in groups and can I edit them? And you can with a but. So right now, if I wanted to modify this, the easiest thing to do would be direct edit and make changes as I wanted. But if there is some reason that I wanted to not do that, say I wanted to do something to this geometry like that's not a word. Just come in here. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to do something like this and get rid of that. That's great. I can do that. This is one of the things we like about SketchUp is you can do whatever you want in SketchUp, and it's awesome. But our BuildEdge data now is out of sync with the thing on your screen. Again, not a problem. It's not going to blow up or anything like that. But what will happen is if I come back and make an edit, see, first thing as I mouse over this, look at how my preview looks. My preview is actually showing it thinks that that corner is still out there. So if I select this and drag, it's going to put it back to the way BuildEdge thinks that data is. Again, it's not a bad thing. It's not like in Plan where I have to do things like abandon BuildEdge data in order to move forward. I can make those changes. The worst thing that's going to happen is BuildEdge is going to go draw it the way it thinks it's supposed to be drawn. So those changes can be made, but I will eventually, sooner or later, potentially lose them. I had another question about dormers. Absolutely, we can create dormers. There's some caveats to that. We can't put holes into roofs yet. That is on the list. But I can build dormers over the top, or I can actually have the roof step up to a higher section. Being as that we've only got a few minutes left, I'm not going to get into dormer input yet, but that is a great topic to put into a roof webinar, which is something I know we're working through setting that up. I had another question come up about the door swing in a 2D door. I worked really hard trying to figure out how the heck to add a swing here that scaled properly when the door changed size. The thing is, this 2D drawing right here is connected to all the same attributes that the 3D door is. So as I make changes to things like, let's see, let's go and change. The door width. So if I come in here and I want to change, where'd it go? Swing door thickness. So if I want to change that to a 3-inch thick door and hit enter, and see that change right there also. if I change my swing from 90 degrees to 45 degrees, oops, that changes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that changes, and I could not, no matter how hard I tried, get a nice looking arc that scaled properly. So if anybody out there has a good tip on how to do that, I would love to hear it. Email me, adietzen@keymark.com, and let me know what I don't know, but I could not get that line in there. So unfortunately, unless I was gonna keep all the doors the same size, I couldn't figure a way to do that. Another question came up about where the dynamic components are stored. I'm going to point you, because there's two different spots depending if you're Windows or Mac, I'm going to point you again back to the dynamic components document that is on the tutorial page of www.buildedge.com. It's a PDF, it's about 9 or 10 pages, pretty short, but it has all the details about it, including where they're stored. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. Another question came up about copying and pasting windows. Our windows don't have smarts in them to automatically cut a hole in the wall, so if I did do something like put this in here and then use SketchUp to copy and paste, let's get that out to the right height. I can do that, but it's not going to put the hole in the wall there. What you could do, this is all theoretical, but this is, I mean, it's absolutely doable. I shouldn't say it's theoretical. Is I could come in here and put an opening only in that's the same size and height, and then I could move that component into that hole. Let's see, good corner to grab by. So that could be a way to get around that. The only issue that's going to happen there, again, is editing, where if I grab this wall now, if I click on this wall and I drag it, no, let's move it this way, that window, of course, will get left behind. So there's absolutely ways to. I mean, it's SketchUp. You guys. This is why we do what we do in SketchUp, is because there's always a way to use SketchUp to get what you need in the end. So that can be used as a way to do it. It's just some additional cleanup if you have to make modifications. Again, which is not a big deal to go back in here and use Move to slide that out like that. Last couple of questions, and we'll try to wrap up. A question about that door swing draw arc. Yeah, once this is in here, you can absolutely just come in, open this. I'll actually make this simple by hiding this. And on this layer, I could come in and draw an arc. So adding the arc after the doors input is really pretty simple and easy if you want to put it in there. I couldn't find a good way on those swing doors to include it so it showed up in the dynamic component, because this line starts scaling weird if I change like the swing size or stretch the door one way or the other. So that's the reason that didn't show up in there. Another question came up about my computer. I am running on Mac. I'll show you exactly what I'm using. It's a couple years old. I think, yeah, so this is mid-2012. 16 gigs of memory with the standard MacBook Pro setup. Not real heavy update or anything like that, other than I do have the upgraded RAM. So that's the computer that I'm demoing on right now, which seems to be pretty good. Works pretty well for what I use SketchUp for. With that, we are at a couple more questions that came in through chat. I'll get these and then we'll wrap up. I had questions about copying and mirroring, I can copy and mirror most BuildEdge information. What is not in copy and mirror right now is doors and windows. What I can do is I can select BuildEdge content. I can come up to extensions, BuildEdge Pro, and I have these three commands right here. There's no buttons for them on the interface yet, but what I can do is I can say cut or copy. In this case, I'll say copy, and then I can say come in and paste. So when I paste, I get a preview of what that looks like, which is real nice. So if I just want to put another copy right there, I can click and place it. You see, like I said, the doors and windows did not come along. That's something we're working on literally right now, is getting those doors and windows to go along with it. The other thing I can do, and this is really cool, because this is really intended for things like multifamily input, where I'm going to have a unit that repeats but possibly flips, I can actually hit the up or down arrow key to take that original input, mirror it, or flip it. So I can 4 different orientations: mirrored, mirrored reversed, standard reversed, or standard, and I can actually swing around and do all the orientations of that selected geometry. The other thing I can do, and this makes a little more sense when I have just a single unit selected, is I'll copy that and paste, is when I can change what point I want to paste by. So if I want to put this up on top like this, I can say, well, which corner do I want to go by to place it, and I can do that. That is by hitting the left and the right arrow key. It toggles through the points that are on the bottom of the selected geometry. Real cool. Again, if for doing something like multiple units which mirror back and forth, left and right, it's invaluable. Cuts time way down. The other thing that's real nice is I can get something like a first floor of a hotel, copy it, paste it, and end up with 3 floors in a couple of minutes, rather than a lot of time for input. The other question I had was about arched openings. You can actually, I have 2 answers to this question. If I can put a door in, so this is when we punch a hole in the door for, when you're changing values over here, by the way, you do have to hit enter to get the UI to accept the value. I stumble over that on a regular basis. So just fair pointing out, somebody else is going to hit it. When we punch a hole in the wall, this is the hole that goes into the wall. Whoa. So there is no changes to that. I don't think we'll make a change to that. What you could do is you could take a door or a window, and you could actually build a component that had basically wall in the component around the arch. Maybe this is something we'll do in an advanced webinar, but you could actually build that. What you would end up having in that case is you'd have these extra lines right here that would need to be hidden manually to make it look like the arch is just hanging out in there. So that would be possible right now with the software we have to create a dynamic component door or window that has an arch on it. You would just end up with these extra lines right here that you would have to hide. Which is, I mean, that's exactly how we would go about if we had a component for an arched door or an arched opening, would be to do exactly that. We may end up just putting some smarts in there that says hide this, or we might just change the way we handle the outline of the door in hiding it always and putting it somewhere else. So as far as arched opening, I wanted to point this out because we've had several questions about arched openings, and it is possible to do. Maybe I'll try to get a tutorial video up on our tutorials page, maybe addressing that, but we will for sure get that into a webinar because we've had many people ask that question. All right, guys, this is that's our little over our 1 hour. I hope this was helpful for you. Like I said, there's a lot of information I would love to get into. I know you guys have more questions, so I'd love you'll get a follow-up survey. If you do take that, you can tell us what we did good, what we could have done better. It would be great to hear, and let us know the additional topics you want to hear about. Because, like I said, I don't mind doing these. I like to reach out to you guys and help you out however I can, but it doesn't do any good if I'm showing something that you don't want to see. So keep telling us what you want to see, and we'll keep trying to do webinars with that information. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Appreciate all your input. Love talking to you guys, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Keep your ears and eyes out, and we'll let you know when the next webinar is. So thank you.